We were celebrating. We were happy about the win last night over the Cowboys, and then we're dealt another massive injury blow.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in a Friday edition of Locked On Lions, Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. Matt Dery with you on this, a Friday, December 5th, a victory Friday as the Lions took care of business last night over the Dallas Cowboys, heading into the weekend, and Saturday, December 6th. Go Indiana tomorrow. I will be there tomorrow night, hopefully to see the Hoosiers make a little history and knock off Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. But thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Lions for a Friday, brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Coming up on the program today, we got to discuss for sure the latest on Brian Branch and an injury that is absolutely devastating for this football team. We got the PFF grades for you as well. Top 5 and bottom 5 Lions on offense and defense from last night's win over the Cowboys. Aiden Hutchinson plays a lot. I will explain that coming up momentarily. A little NFC North chatter as well to end the show today. Shout outs to our everyday listeners, our everydayers. Thank you for checking us out daily, wherever you get your podcasts. Okay. Like I said, Lions, great win last night. We talked about it on the show last night. In case you missed it, go back and check out the instant reaction. Took care of business, needed a win, got a win, all of those things. And then this morning we wake up to a report from Tom Pelissero at the NFL Network that indeed Brian Branch, who had to be carted off of last night's game with an apparent ankle injury, indeed does have a torn Achilles tendon in his leg, which means you're not going to see Brian Branch until the earliest December of next season. God, this sucks. This sucks. This absolutely blows. It's terrible. There's a handful of guys on this team that you say, man, they cannot lose these players. If Aiden Hutchinson were to go down, if Jahmyr Gibbs were to leave, if Jared Goff were leave with an injury, if Jared Goff were to get hurt, all of these things, and I'm knocking on wood, I'm knocking on everything here. Brian Branch is in that class. He is a ball hawk. He runs north and south as good as any safety in the league. He's around the football. Yes, there are times that Brian Branch struggles in pass coverage, and we've seen this year. I don't think he's had the kind of season I expected him to have. I thought, this could be a big-time Pro Bowl, all-pro type year from Brian Branch. There have been games he's played very well. There's been some games you scratch your head at ball location on deep shots and everything else. But to lose him for the rest of this season and a good chunk of next year, it hurts. And you're already without Kirby Joseph, who has missed, six, 7 games with the knee injury. You had, going into this season, according to Pro Football Focus, 2 of the top 6 safeties in the game, the best safety tandem in the entire league. And now Branch is out. We don't know about Joseph's availability, and you are left with Avonte Maddox, who played pretty well last night, Thomas Harper, and Daniel Thomas at safety. And I'm sure Eric Hallett will be brought back. I think he's on the practice squad. If you remember, Eric Hallett played in the Tampa game and had to start. But it just, how many more injuries are we going to have to deal with following this team? How much longer do we have to talk about missing players and games missed? The Lions, as they pointed out last night on the Amazon broadcast with Al Michaels and the dog sitter, Kirk Herbstreit. By the way, drinking game every time. Go back and you want to do something tonight on a Friday night? Rewatch Lions and go to Amazon and rewind the game And every time Kirk Herbstreit calls Brian Schottenheimer shoddy, take a drink. You will be in an ambulance by the third quarter, heading to the hospital. Anyway, they mentioned on the broadcast last night that the Lions led the league in games missed by players last season, and they're on pace to do it again this year based on the injuries. And look, I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's just bad luck. I don't know if it's how they practice. If the Lions, let's say, get in the playoffs and lose in the first round, or don't even make the playoffs, do they fire the athletic trainer? I don't know. You know what? That wouldn't surprise me if they made a change at the training spot, at the athletic trainer spot, because this is just outrageous. At the start of the year, you looked up and you went, man, this secondary is really going to be good with the amount of depth that they have. Terrion Arnold, Amik Robertson, DJ Reed, Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, Ennis Rakestraw, Khalil Dorsey, Avonte Maddox. How many of those guys have really played a lot this year? Amik plays every game. He's been the one guy that's been out there every week. DJ Reed was out half the season. Terrion Arnold's been out and done for the year. Avonte Maddox now becomes a very important piece, and this was a guy that the Eagles let walk this offseason. Man. They got to go to LA next week and play the Rams, and you're talking about the possibility of, Thomas Harper left last night's game with a concussion. What if he's not cleared? Or he was in concussion protocol? Your starting safeties would be against Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua, Daniel Thomas, and Avonte Maddox. Sometimes attrition just gets the most of you, and it just beats you down. And the Lions have just had so many injuries here. But they've got to rally. And I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you this. Last night, if you watched the video this morning, or maybe it might have been out late last night, of the Lions in their locker room, and Dan Campbell gave the speech to the team. And there were two things that stood out to me about what went on in that locker room last night. The first one being that this team is so together. They really are. They are together and they're united. Actually, I'm going to say three things. They're together, they're united, and they love each other. You can just see it in the locker room. You see how much fun they have. You see how much of a team they really are. That's number one. Number two, Al-Qadim Muhammad got a game ball from Dan Campbell for his 3-sack performance, and he said flat out, in his little speeches, he's holding up the ball. Our coaching staff and Kelvin Shepard challenged us. He said it. We got challenged, and we rose to the occasion, rose to the challenge for 5 sacks. So Kelvin Shepard put an APB out to that D line and to the rest of the defense, and they responded. And I loved hearing that. Get called out. Get challenged, rise up, play better. And number three, man, did Tom Kennedy get some sort of ovation from his teammates when he got a game ball for his 120 yards in kick returns and averaging 40 yards a pop. My God, the ovation, the loud clapping, the cheering, the hooting and hollering for TK85 was just awesome. And look, the Lions, we've talked about it this year. The kick return game has not been the best yet. I mean, they had the Khalif Raymond punt return against the Browns. They've had some nice games from Khalif in the return game. He doesn't usually return kicks. I mean, they were trying a Grant Stewart in the preseason. Jacob Sailors has been okay. But Tom Kennedy, man, was absolutely dominant last night in turning the field and switching the field for the Lions. And his teammates just love him. That was really, really cool to see that kind of loud ovation for him from his teammates as he got a game ball from Dan Campbell. All right, it is Victory Friday here. Lions, of course, now at 8-5. We'll dive into the entire NFC North race coming up momentarily because the game that will take place on Sunday afternoon will help the Lions regardless of who wins. We will explain that coming up a little bit later on. Pro Football Focus checking in with their grades from last night's win over the Cowboys. We will get to it coming up next right here on a Friday Locked On Lions. Hi, folks. Locked On Lions brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. We know this. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. If you had the Lions last night minus, 3.5? You had the over, you did well. And it's always fun to watch the Lions and have, a little action going as well on FanDuel. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump right into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, back on Locked On Lions, Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. This is a Friday edition. You are also listening to or watching the #1 sports podcast network. Monday, big announcement coming about our Everydayers Club. Oh, yeah, the club. We're going to give you more info about it coming up on Monday. Lions at the Rams coming up next Sunday. So Detroit has a little bit of time off. Dan Campbell slept in a little bit today because if you follow the wifey, Holly Campbell, on Instagram, it was light outside when they went for their Starbucks run. Normally it's dark and pitch black. So looks like they went a little bit later than usual. The Lions and the Rams face off next Sunday. That's the high profile Fox 425 game. And Rams, we know this, playing excellent football right now with that 9-3 mark, tied with the Bears, but the Bears have the tiebreaker at the moment. All right, Pro Football Focus grades from last night's 44-30 victory over the Dallas Cowboys. Let's start on the defensive side. Top 5 Lion performers on defense. You had to play double-digit snaps. So Al-Qadim Muhammad, 79.1 grade. 5th best. Tyleik Williams was 4th best at 79.6. 3rd highest. DJ Reader. Great to see Reader have a big game last night. 84.2 grade. Aiden Hutchinson. 77 snaps last night. Incredible. A 90.1 grade. And Avonte Maddox. Yes. 90.3 grade. Highest on the entire team. And they're going to need Avonte now at strong safety because of Brian Branch being out for the year. As far as defense, the guys that had the lowest graded performers from last night: Marcus Davenport, 5th lowest at 60.5. Alim McNeill, 46.2. Amik Robertson, rough night last night, 44.7. Roy Lopez, 2nd lowest. He's here, he's there, he's everywhere. 41.5. And Trevor Nowaski, 28.8. So those are your top 5 and bottom 5 Lions on defense from last night's win over the Dallas Cowboys. As far as the best performances on offense from last night, let's give you the top 5. David Montgomery, 5th highest, 71.1. Tate Ratledge, 4th highest, 72.6. Jahmyr Gibbs, 3rd, 73.7. Jamison Williams, 74.7. And the top graded Lion, of course, on offense, it's every week, Penei Sewell, 82.8. As far as the lowest graded Lions on offense, Tristan Colon playing some left guard with Miles Frazier, 59.2. Ross Dwelly, the tight end, 57 flat. Third lowest grade, Graham Glasgow, 53.4. And then two very low grades. Second lowest was Dan Skipper. Dan, 30.8. And Miles Frazier, I'm surprised. I thought he wasn't bad playing left guard and filling in last night and getting his first chance. PFF didn't like the 26 snaps he played. His grade was a 23.2. 23.2. So those are your top 5 and bottom 5 Lions on offense and defense from last night's win. All right, speaking of snap counts, I was talking about this with the crack research staff today. But when you look at the snap counts, and one thing we don't really talk about or touch upon enough is how much Aiden Hutchinson plays. All right. We want Aiden Hutchinson to be the best he can be. There's no question that this town loves him, whether it was the Divine Child angle, the Michigan angle. Regardless, Aiden Hutchinson is beloved in this town. And he's been a pretty damn good player for 4 years. He really has. He's got his new contract. He's going to be making over $40 million a year in a couple of years. But one thing we don't ever really talk about with Hutch is the dude doesn't come off the field. And I looked it up today. Myles Garrett of the Browns, okay, who's considered the best there is as far as edge rushers in the NFL. Do you know Myles Garrett plays 78% of the snaps for the Browns on defense? He comes out of the game. He gets a breather. He's not out there all of the time. Last night, Aiden Hutchinson played 94% of the snaps. And so while we sit here and talk about, man, maybe Aiden's not worth that kind of dough, and he's not in the class of Micah Parsons or Myles Garrett or, Max Crosby. Dude played 94% of the snaps last night. He doesn't come out of the game. And I think at some point, Brad Holmes has got to address getting him some help. We saw Tyrus Wheat play a few snaps last night, number 99. I almost had to look it up. I'm like, wait, who's this again? Oh, yeah, Tyrus Wheat. He played 7 snaps last night. All right, at defensive end. Al-Qadim Muhammad played 38 at defensive end. Marcus Davenport played 39 at defensive end. I don't see really anybody else. Trevor Nowaski occasionally rushes the passer. Derek Barnes occasionally rushes the passer. But I think for the Lions moving forward, especially next year, they're going to have to get Hutchinson some help so that he's not worn out, so that at the end of games, he is strong. 94% of the snaps is outrageous. It's crazy. So if Myles Garrett's playing just under 80, we know that at the start of the year, Micah Parsons was not playing a ton as he was kind of getting the sea legs under him with the Packers. But, man, whether you think Hutchinson's great, you think Hutchinson's good, you think he's too overhyped, you think he's not hyped up enough, the guy does not come out of the game. And that's a tough position to play where you are running upfield as a defensive end, as an edge rusher. You're double teamed, at times triple teamed with a chip from a linebacker, from a tight end or whatever it is. But I'm going to tip my cap to that dude because, yes, I haven't been happy with the performance of anybody on that D-line or pass rush unit the last 4 weeks with just 4 sacks. But Hutchinson is still the leader of that group. And if they can get more consistent play from Al-Qadim Muhammad and they can find some more help at opposite edge rusher or even a backup to Hutchinson to give him some just breathing room, I think that's needed in a big way here with this franchise. They've tried Lacey, they've tried Wheat, they've tried other guys. Davenport is now back, but they've got to monitor what Aiden Hutchinson is doing so that by the end of games and by the end of December, he is not completely just exhausted. I would be. He plays a lot of snaps, a lot. All right, when we come back, huge game this weekend in the NFC North. The Lions' window to make the percentage chance of them making the playoffs sits right now at 53%. They've got two teams ahead of them in the division, and they're going to be playing each other this weekend. We will discuss that coming up next right here on a Friday edition of Locked On Lions. All right, folks, great to be back with you on this Friday Locked On Lions. Again, Lions and Rams next week. We'll get that crossover next Thursday and talk some Rams. Probably going to try to get Stephen Tulloch on next week, the former Lion. Ran into Tully. He runs his own he has his own coffee business now. I ran into him in Grand Rapids a couple of weekends ago at an event, and he said he would come on. So we're going to try to shoot for maybe Stephen Tulloch on Tuesday and get his thoughts. One other quick note, speaking of former Lions, Robert Porcher, I told you this maybe yesterday on the show, gave a great speech at the DAC. The DAC Detroit Athletic Club has this men's group called the Beavers, and they play water basketball. And then after their games, they have a luncheon, and they have guest speakers. TJ Lang spoke. I was invited to that. I'm not in the DAC, but I have friends that invite me. Tom Izzo was a speaker, Dusty May, and others. Yesterday, Robert Porcher spoke to the masses and did a great job. And one thing that Robert talked about with this Lions team, he said, on all the good teams and on all the teams, even when I played, he said, you had Barry, you had Herman, you had Spielman, you had some high-level guys at the top, but really from players 10 to 53 on the roster, it's interchangeable and it's a lot of the same guys. And he brought that up. And there's a part of me that agrees with him and a part of me that disagrees a little bit because I think the Lions have good depth and a lot of really good players. But he talked about how guys need to step up and make some plays. And you're right. In big instances and big spots last night, you saw Tyrus Wheat. You saw Avonte Maddox. You saw Miles Frazier playing left guard, even though he hadn't played all year. Isaac Tesla caught a touchdown pass. Tom Kennedy takes an entire team, but you got to have a lot of those guys. The high-end guys still got to perform too. So I thought that was kind of an intriguing thing that he said at the luncheon yesterday. All right, so big game this weekend. Bears, Packers at Green Bay, Lambeau Field at 4:25 on Fox. Bears are 9-3. Packers, as we know, are sitting right now at 8. I just had my screen go blank on me here. Packers are 8-4-1. And these schedules are insane because the Bears and the Packers are going to play each other this weekend. And at Green Bay at 4:25. Bears go to Cleveland, or Bears host Cleveland next week, host Green Bay the week after, Saturday night game on Fox, at the Niners for Sunday Night Football in week 17, and then host the Lions in week 18. We're not sure when that game is going to be, but here's the good news. 9-3, 8-4-1, 8-5. Lions currently right now are in third place. Bears and Packers get to play each other twice. Who are we rooting for this week? Do we want the Bears to finally lose, get to 9-4? Packers would then be 9-4-1. No, wait. The Packers are. I messed that up. What did I say? I said, I want to make sure I get this correct. I had it. I lost it. I'm terrible. All right. Green Bay is, what did I say? 8-3-1. Sorry. God bless it. 8-3-1. I'm sure some of you are watching, listening, going, Dery, wake up. It's Friday. I'm exhausted. I was up till 1:30 doing the pod. I was at the gym at 6:30. Shout out to Mandy at Edge Fitness in Shelby Township. Mandy Shamami, the Mandy shop, Club Mandy. Bears 9-3, Packers 8-3-1, Lions 8-5. I think we want Green Bay to win this week. Packers would be 9-3-1, Bears would be 9-4. But we want them to beat each other up for sure. But really, the Bears' only gimme left is the Browns the rest of the way. Lions, we've talked about it. It's going to be very difficult to make a run without Brian Branch. I get that. But at Rams, Steelers, at Vikings, at Bears, this is easily, to me, the toughest game they've got left this coming week against the Rams. Good news is they got 10 days to get ready for it. At the Bears, week 18 is going to be crazy. Could you imagine Ben Johnson, Antoine Randall L., JT Barrett, all the former, Jonah Jackson, all these former Lions on that staff and on the roster trying to end the Lions season? I think if the Bears were to win and get to 10-3, I think that's too big of a distance for the Lions to make up. And I know some of you are probably going to go, well, you look at the division and you look at the schedule and man, it's difficult and man, this and that. The Chicago Bears are not as good as the Lions clubbed them in week 2. And I know they're a different team now, but these teams in the NFC who are all very good. All right. Philadelphia, 8-4. Rams, I mentioned before, 9-3. Good teams. These are solid teams. No one's taken away from these teams, but there's nobody dominant. We're not sitting here going, well, the Lions lost Brian Branch and they're 8-5 and they're just not as good as blank. They were right there with the Eagles a couple of weeks ago. They just couldn't score. Their defense held their own in that game. Are you scared and are you shaking in your moon boots over Seattle? I like the Seahawks. Very well coached. Very well drilled. Lots of good talent. Sam Darnold. I'm not scared of Sam Darnold. Niners have had a lot of injuries. CMC is excellent. Brock Purdy is really good. Kittle. They still got guys on that defense, but they're without Fred Warner and others. Tampa Bay, Carolina. We saw Dallas last night. I still think the Lions have a shot here. And I think if the Packers can win a couple of games over the Bears, obviously Green Bay already has a tiebreaker over the Lions because of the sweep. Things could get jumbled and get interesting, is all I'm saying. And I just don't see a dominant team where there's like, Bears are definitely better than the Lions. Rams definitely. Why can't the Lions go into LA this weekend and win? The Lions are going to have more fans in there than the Rams fans. Stafford's playing great this year. He's in the MVP conversation. Their D-line, Rams D-line, ferocious. Ferocious. Cowboys D-line was pretty good coming into the game last night, and the Lions O-line played pretty well. I'm just saying. All right, that'll do it for us for this Friday edition of Locked On Lions. We are back again next week on Monday. Fresh week of shows. Have a great weekend, everybody. Go Hoosiers.